Today, we'll be discussing our MCP1 project entitled Addressing UCIL's Lack of External Analysis That Turned a City into a Gas Chamber. My name is Dave, and Josiah and Charles will be joining on later. So from the table of contents, we divided into three sections. The first one is going to be the problem identification from the case study, and we have two recommendations coming up later. For the problem identification, this case is based on the 1984 Bhopal gas tragedy, a catastrophic incident caused by the release of the dangerous gas called methyl isocyanate from the Union Carbide India's Limited Pesticide Plant, or the UCILS pesticide plant. The leak has led to the deaths of thousands and left hundreds of thousands with long-term health effects. Upon deeper investigation, we identified that the tragedy stemmed not just from the gas leak itself, but from the negligence, especially the failure to conduct proper external analysis and enforce basic safety standards. The UCIL sourced critical equipment like the tanks and the gas scrubbers from the suppliers. They didn't even verify if they met the appropriate safety requirements, and this carelessness, combined with the company's ignorance of the safety protocols, legal warnings, and responsibility, has created conditions for the disasters. To address this, our team has proposed two key recommendations. The first one is implementing supply safety program, and the second one is conducting a formation of a regulatory compliance committee.
So the next part that I'm going to explain is the recommendation one, which is implementing supply safety program. This recommendation directly targets a major weakness that led to the Bhopal gas tragedy. So why do we need this recommendation? Because as you can see, the materials like MIC gas were stored in poorly maintained tanks and managed with subpar equipment. But many of those components come from the third-party supplier, and UCIL didn't enforce any proper safety check or quality control before bringing them into the plant. So even if the internal system were functioning, the foundation itself was already flawed, and that's why we are recommending a supply safety program to make sure that every supplier meets a safety standard before their product ever enter UCIL operations. So how is going to be carried out? Well, as you can see, I given some of the examples by developing a standard operating procedures like SOP for supplier audit, and categorize supplier into low, medium, high risk tier. And the third one is conduct third-party safety inspections. And the fourth one is implement a supplier onboarding protocol with mandatory safety training. By doing this, we create a layer of protection that filtered out unsafe or unreliable supplier early on, rather than reacting after a failure has already occurred. And who's the responsible of this problem? The first one is the procurement department will be responsible for rolling out for the audits and managing relationship with suppliers. And the second one is safety and risk management team will handle the technical side, inspection, risk assessment, and training enforcement. And the last one is operation director will oversee the entire program and make sure that the final decisions on supplier approval. This shared responsibility ensures no single point of failure. It also builds a stronger, more transparent supply chain where safety is everyone's job. And the next part is when and where. So we're recommending that program kick off within 1 month of being approved. That gives time to set up procedures and assemble teams. After that, a pilot rollout will begin by month. And focusing on high priority supplier by month 6, we aim for full-scale implementation across all of UCIL plant operations. And this won't just be limited to internal office. Team will travel to supplier sites to make sure safety practice are happening on the ground, not just on paper. Now let's talk into the costs and the costs. So yeah, as you can see that audit fees, staff training program, and updating compliance system, but we need to look at the big picture. What's the cost not implementing this? In Bhopal case, it was thousands of life loss, billions in damage, and irreversible damage to the company reputation. So while the investment might seem large at first, it's actually saving the company from far greater loss, both financially and ethically. Now let's talk about the potential problems. Of course, if we don't give a solutions that the company will not be perfect. And I'll give some of the, challenge, which is the resistance from long-time supplier who may be reluctant to adopt new protocol. There's also the fact that compliant vendors might charge more, which could raise procurement costs, and in some region, there may be a shortage of certified third-party inspectors, making the audit process slower, but none of these the deal breakers. With the right planning and commitment, this obstacle can be overcome, and considering what's at stake, the benefits will outweigh the challenge.
So, for the second recommendation, we would need a regulatory compliance committee. What is a regulatory compliance committee? A regulatory compliance committee is a specific task force designed to regulate and ensure UCIL is assigned within the local and legal regulations, which would enhance their accountability on business activities regarding their ethical conducts, increases their reputation, and it allows them to properly control their internal environment. How is this going to be carried out? There is 4 steps to doing this. First step being a good standing of workers. You need to hire experienced and dedicated workers with good judgment about the law. The second step would be conducting weekly check-ins or audits on equipments to fit in the standardized regulation within the industry. The third one being to be able to achieve a good cooperation base between the managers and the committee to be able to communicate freely. The fourth one, this good cooperation allows trust between the managers and the factory workers. This would result in good concurrent feedback, which ultimately having a regulated work environment. Who will be in charge of carrying out each task? Experienced managers with knowledge about the law and skills that would allow them to achieve trust with their workers. This would allow prevention of failure within legality. 4 key aspects include the Chief Operations Officer, which allows oversight within the company, the HR Manager, the Human Resource Manager, which is in charge of recruiting and training for these experienced legal workers. Another key officer would be the Safety Compliance Officer, which implements these safety rules to the other office workers.
Timeline and location of the task, when and where. The team establishment would be an estimated about 2 months, and initial training and compliance framework for the committee would take around 3 months. Ongoing operations would take the time of quarterly audits, which is 2.5 months, which also can be done monthly, and drills, weekly checkups. Location will be done in the Bovo plant in UCIL. What are the costs or types of costs needed to be provided by the company? This is done as new staff salaries, the new experienced workers, the compliance software tools. They can't work with nothing, so they need tools to help them. They need training and certification expenses. And lastly, being internal audit operations and documentation. However, with this compliance committee, there could be some potential problems. There's 3 problems. First being difficulty in hiring experienced legal professionals. These professionals can be hard to find and they might not fit the job. These legal professionals also have high salary since they have skills that are valued most. Hence, there's budget limitations within the company in hiring and setup. Third, but not least, of the potential problems would be coordination challenges between the legal and operations team. This is needed to achieve trust and to gain smooth workflow within the company. Hence, if the experienced professionals are unable to achieve this, there might be some problems. Thank you very much. This is it for me and my group, Josiah and Dave. Thank you.